Hey there, welcome back to a new vlog. We're off on a little girl's trip to Normandy, so come along for a few days of beaches, good food, exploring, and of course, plenty of reading. The trip started on the train from Paris, and I actually managed to finish The Throne of Glass on the way. I had been so into the book that I immediately started the second installment, Crown of Midnight. On the way, we stopped at La Maison du Biscuit, which is such a lovely place to visit. Even before you go inside, it's really charming with the outside design, almost like a little village. And inside, it's basically a paradise for anyone who likes food. They have biscuits, of course, but also caramels, olive oils, tea, and even beautiful teacups and other little gifts. We picked up some biscuits to try and they were delicious. If you're driving around this part of Normandy, I would definitely recommend making a little stop here. As soon as we arrived at the house, we dropped our bags and went straight to the beach. For our first dinner in Normandy, we kept things very simple and had a picnic by the sea, which felt like the perfect way to start the trip. And obviously you can't come all the way to the beach without going into the water. We only went in for a little battle this time, but the water was surprisingly warm. We came back to our spot on the beach and played a card game called Odin while enjoying the last bit of the evening. Then it was back to the house where I settled in with a cup of herbal tea and continued reading Crown of Midnight. I woke up a little earlier than everyone else the next morning, so naturally I went straight back to reading. I have been really enjoying the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas, and there is something so nice about having a quiet morning to yourself with a book before everybody else gets up. Eventually it was time for breakfast before heading back to the beach. We spent most of the morning there, and this time I went for a proper swim. The water was so clear and it was such a beautiful day, it was difficult to leave. In the afternoon, we decided to explore a little more of the area by bike. For lunch, we stopped at Le Terminus, which is a food hall. We arrived quite late though, and unfortunately most of the stands had already closed. So our options were limited, but we went for burgers and they turned out to be really good. After lunch, we did a little bit of window shopping and wandered around before stopping for ice cream. I went for strawberry and blackcurrant, which was such a good combination, and we enjoyed our ice cream while sitting by the harbour. We then spent the rest of the afternoon at a restaurant right on the beach. We ordered some drinks, played a few more card games, and basically stayed there enjoying the view for as long as we could. I started the morning in much the same way as the previous day, with some quiet reading time before everyone was awake. I really loved having these slow mornings to myself during the trip. By this point I was completely stuck into the world of Selena Sardothian and finding it very difficult to put the book down. But we had a full day of exploring ahead of us, so we headed out to discover La Hague in Normandy. Our first stop was the park surrounding the Château de Nacqueville. The estate is known for its beautiful gardens with landscaped areas, ponds, and lots of greenery, so it was a lovely place to start the day and have a wander around. We then headed to the Maison Jacques Prévert. I really enjoyed this museum because I realized how little I actually knew about Prévert. At school in France, I mostly knew him through the poems we all had to learn, but there is so much more to his life and work. The house gives you a much better idea of the different sides of his creative life, including his writing, photography, and visual art. We're also an art studio with some craft activities which were mainly aimed at children, but that did not stop us from getting involved. We spent a surprisingly good amount of time making our own little collages. After the museum, we drove to a stone beach where we stopped for the picnic we had prepared earlier that morning. And just next to the beach was Port Racine, which is known as the smallest harbour in France. It is absolutely tiny but incredibly picturesque. The water was this beautiful turquoise color, and with the little boats and rocky coastline, it almost felt more like the Côte d'Azur than Normandy. From there, we continued towards the Phare de Goury. We went for a little walk around the lighthouse and took in the view across the coastline. We also stopped for a refreshing drink before continuing on our final stop of the day, the Nez de Jobourg. This is one of the places where you really want to take your time. The cliffs are impressive, and from here you can see across toward the Anglo-Norman island. We grabbed a crêpe and found a spot to sit and admire the views as the afternoon started to go down. It was such a beautiful way to finish our day exploring La Hague. And just like that, it was already our last day. Before leaving, we headed out to explore the local food market. I always love visiting markets when I'm traveling because you get to see a different side of a place, and of course there's usually plenty of good food to discover. We then had one final picnic on the beach and went for one last swim before packing everything up. And then it was time to say goodbye to Normandy and take the train back to Paris. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next vlog.